Switching a little bit, Prime Minister, the whole impact of COVID on economies and the health of countries within AOSIS. What do you think, is there the need for more developed countries to provide assistance to small island states?
Absolutely. COVID has been debilitating and deadly. And, small states with their structural problems to include their limited financial resources, limited human resources, have had not only to contend with the effects of climate change, but also COVID. And that in itself, too, would have resulted in the redeployment of scarce resources to manage the health consequences of COVID. And when you look at the joint effects of COVID and climate change, evidently, managing those two phenomena, they are beyond the means of small states. And I think there's a greater need for increased funding coming from the developed countries to assist, these small states globally. And the assistance, could be in various forms, not only in terms of grants, but also in debt suspension, debt relief, debt write-offs, climate swaps. I think that there should be, a greater effort in assisting these small states in order to build greater resilience in order to address the challenges associated with COVID and climate change.
On the local scene, Prime Minister, curfew has been adjusted. The numbers keep rising. Do you think that the message is lost somewhere?
The message is not lost. I think, though, that there's some level of obstinacy, and people believe that COVID will not affect them. We all understand that perhaps only 2% of the population will get greatly, or let's say gravely ill, to become hospitalized or may die. And I think it's that probability that people continue to gamble with, thinking that they may not be within that 2%. But it's a very dangerous position to take, because no matter how healthy you are, you may well be part of that 2%. So the appropriate thing to do is to see COVID as a significant threat and to manage that risk by becoming vaccinated.
Significant threat you mentioned, sir. What threat is posed by COVID to the economy?
Well, I think there's where perhaps people do not understand the linkage that as we continue to deal with the escalation in COVID cases and the increased hospitalizations, it creates a problem because we have very limited health infrastructure. And we have to make sure that we contain COVID to the extent that our health infrastructure does not become overwhelmed. And almost invariably, in order to contain COVID, whenever there's an escalation in COVID cases, there's a need for us to, let's say, increase curfews or to, for that matter, going into lockdowns. And every time curfew hours are increased or you're going into a lockdown, then it reduces the viability of the economy and creates fundamental problems. In fact, the strain to pay salaries and wages continues to increase month by month. It is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain the payment of salaries and wages. And we all know, too, that the payment of pensions by Social Security have been grossly affected because we have failed to return to normalcy in order to put people back to work. And the longer the COVID situation protracts, the longer people take to get vaccinated, then those challenges will persist. It means, therefore, that a lot of people will remain unemployed, and fundamentally more people will get ill, more people will die of COVID. So the responsible thing really to do is for each person to get vaccinated in the national interest. So it goes beyond the personal interest, but for individuals to do so in the national interest in order to restore, economy and at the same time to protect livelihoods.
Throughout 2020 and for the 9 months of 2021, your government has consistently met salaries at the end of the month. Do we see this continuing at the end of August, September, October, November to the end of the year?
Well, we always believe that governance is the art of the possible, and notwithstanding the challenges, we continue to press on. We have done some very creative things to raise revenue in order to sustain the payment of salaries and wages and other obligations. And we will remain optimistic about our capacity to do so. But at the same time, we have to understand the situation is becoming more and more tenuous.
Do we see payments by the end of this week for August?
I'm pretty sure that we will make the payments by tomorrow, and we'll continue to press forward and to soldier on and to make sure that we're in a position to meet our obligations. So we take those obligations very seriously, and I think that my administration brings a significant amount of competence, and it is really the competence, the experience, and the commitment that is keeping the country's economy afloat, ensuring that we're able to provide for our people. I know many are not appreciative of the effort, but at the end of the day, we all remain very committed towards the empowerment of our people. And we know during this very difficult period that we have to hold the economy together. We have to continue to provide for our people. And I think that in the circumstances that we have done remarkably well, and we will continue to do so.
Probably Antigua and Barbuda is the only country within the region that has almost all of the available vaccines available for use by the population. What would be your message to the nation at this time?
Well, we have done our job. I mean, our job was to access and to acquire the life-saving vaccines. And we have enough vaccines to inoculate the entire population, including all of our youth. So on that basis, the individual now has a responsibility to respond, to get inoculated so that we can restore lives and livelihoods. And the ball is pretty much in their court. The most we can do at this point is to continue to encourage them to get vaccinated, not only in their personal interests, but in the interests of their family members, and certainly in the interests of our nation. So again, I use this opportunity to ask everyone to please get vaccinated in your own interest, to protect yourself, to protect your children, to protect your family members, and at the same time to contribute towards the restoration of our economies as we seek to achieve some level of normalcy so that we can put our people back to work and that we can restore some level of normality.
Finally, Prime Minister, do we see the government moving towards formalizing and enforcing the testing of government employees who are not vaccinated?
Well, it is a policy that has been introduced, and we will encourage all our public servants to cooperate fully. If you know you're not vaccinated, you have an obligation to get tested regularly to ensure too that in the event that you contract COVID, that there could be early intervention, and at the same time to ensure that you do not inadvertently spread COVID to your co-workers or other family members, to include your children and your parents and other family members and friends. So it is a sensible thing to do. If you do not wish to get vaccinated, we have not made vaccinations mandatory. At least you have the obligation to get tested regularly. And as you know, we have made the testing free of cost, and that is the least that a responsible person could do, to get tested.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
Thank you.